Hello everyone, welcome back. Now, this section we'll be talking about the real world use cases in industry. Basically, I'll take few real-time use cases and I'll show you what exactly the test case is and how it will be and what API testing we have to perform in real time. So basically, see, I'm creating this theoretical sections just for your information. So someone who is using robot frameworks for the first time, who is seeing the robot frameworks for the first time. So I want that person to be convinced enough to that, okay, that I have to learn this thing. They need to be convinced that, yeah, I have to learn this because this is something good. And who is doing testing for the first time. So they just get idea of what exactly the testing is and what we are doing here. And if you get an idea of everything, once everything you're familiar with, then I find then it will be easy for you. What I guess is it will be easy for you to adapt this thing. It's easy for you to learn more. So basically, that's why I'm going through these theory parts. And this is the last theory section where we'll be talking about some theory because after this I'll be doing all practical things like installations and all. So I prefer more doing codings instead of talking about theory, but it's necessary in the beginning. You need to give some idea. So that's why I'm going through these theory sections. After this, we'll start this installations and all. We'll do the installation video, and again, I'll show you what exactly to install and how to install, and then we'll start doing testing accordingly. So first, let's see what's the real test, real scenario, basically test cases. So this is the one. First one is e-commerce. That's a common thing. So I've taken the first example of e-commerce because everyone is using a websites like this, like Amazon, Flipkart, eBay. Everyone is using these type of uh, online shopping platforms. So in this type of scenario, web automation, automating flows such as login, search, add, payment, order confirmation. That's for web automation. But for API testing, that's our focus. So here, what exactly we'll be doing in e-commerce, what type of test cases we can do, or what exactly API testing role is, we'll get to know about this in e-commerce. So basically, using API testing, we can validate product catalogs. Basically, when you get the products, when you fetch the products, and usually you don't have basically if you don't have this idea, I'll tell you when you are using these Amazon websites and all, it's not something that information is stored in a database and you are getting it from there. No, it's like through API testing you get, because it's very hard to keep this much. You have millions of products, so it's very hard to store them in a database. It's better that rotate it with the API testing, with the API URLs. Basically, that will give you the information. So basically here, when we are doing API testing, it validates the product catalogs. Basically, we get the product details and all. Check price, update discount APIs and cart. Here also API testing is applied. Ensure payment gateways. So basically where informations, we don't need to store it, you say. Just fetch the information, display it, and again it's gone. It's like that. So there we apply API testing. So API testing in e-commerce will be applied on these sections basically. Now, robot frameworks role basically use Selenium library for UI testing and request library for API validation. So a different library for both cases, and run combined. We can run combinedly the both things, the UI testing as well as an API testing. So in UI testing, if you are doing login, search, these type of things, so we can combine both. If you say order confirm, API response must also confirm. So basically, these type of response which you get, these are fetched through APIs. So robot framework role is like here we combine both, and to ensure consistency. So basically we combine both UI and API. So basically that's why you have to learn UI testing separately and API testing separately. Second one, hospital management, healthcare industry. Hospital management systems like patients, portals, and electronics health record. So basically in hospitals, again in hospitals, basically where API testing is used to validate basically HL7 or FHIR, where basically APIs, basically where data are exchanged. There we use API testing. Check APIs for lab results, basically where results are generated. So insurance verifications, patient registrations, these type of details basically we fetch through API testing. So when you'll be doing API testing on a healthcare project, so these things you'll be basically testing there. And in automation, web automations, like you have like patients login, appointment bookings, these type of details. So more we are focusing right now in API testing. So I'll talk more about this. Robot frameworks role are basically here again database library to validate patient records in database, automate, integrate, test web and backend healthcare using API, ensure complications by automating audit logging test. So basically here robot frameworks has its own role, API testing has its own role, and combining API testing and web application we can implement on robot frameworks. Third is fintech industry. So here basically it's a banking apps where we do. So basically in banking, we in API testing we verify the balance inquiries through API. We get these inquiry balances. Test fund transfers. Basically, fund transferred like these fund transfers or stock tradings. These all are done through API testing. So like where you transfer a fund, you post basically you post some amount and then you get a response that fund is transferred. These things we are done through API testing. In stocks also, in stock tradings like buy and sell orders, these are done through API testing. These informations basically I don't need to store in database. So that's why what I do, it's like this is server based information that I get. Straight away it hit from the server and gives me the response. That's where API testing is. Again, robot frameworks wrote integrate. Basically, in banking testing, we use Appium library. That's for mobile applications. Validate transaction logs in database with DB inquiries. Automate end-to-end finance where we can use API, UI, and DB all three together. So you see, best thing about robot frameworks is it's allowing everything together. So you learn UI separately, you learn API separately, you learn database testing separately, and then combine all and do in one. So that's the reason behind using learning this robot frameworks. And here in a like before, I've already done a video where I've done UI testing. So obviously I've got an idea about that too. If not, then you can watch those videos too, where I've done robot frameworks with UI testing. Now that's why I brought a series where I'm doing robot frameworks with API testing. Later, I'll bring something using mobile testing or database testing. So part by part, I'm bringing the series so that you get an idea of everything. So already you have the UI testing. Now we are doing API testing. Later, we'll do something else and all at robot frameworks. Robot frameworks is common in all cases. In telecom industry as well, like here also you see basically the test SIM activations. These are done through API. Validate billing and recharge. These are done through API. So just to get an idea what things which you do in real time, these are done. These tests will be testing these things in API testing. And again, robot frameworks role, it's like it automates regression suits to test billing cycles, use API plus DB test to ensure customer recharge reflects in the backend. So here we use robot frameworks basically to perform these testings. And in API testing, these are the scenarios, these type of scenarios we perform through API testing. So when you work in a project, it's not that you have only a UI testing there. In a complete project, you have different things. You have UI testing, you have API testing, you have backend testing. So a lot of testings are required. So part of that testing, one is API testing that we are learning. And that's so if you see in one particular industry, it's divided in three parts. That means three different testings we are doing, and maybe at one place we'll be combining all these three testings. So that's the reason behind why I gave you this users, or basically why I brought these real-time scenarios to you, that you get a clear idea that in real-time testing we don't have only one testing as API testing or web testing. We have different options too, and a part of it is API testing that we are learning in this series. So I guess through these scenarios, you have got an idea that there are different testing portions, and you get an idea that this part is done through UI, this part is done through API, and this part, and here robot frameworks plays its own role. So I guess through this slides, through this things, you get an idea that the use of robot frameworks, as well as now there is one more, travel and hospitality. Now again, here you see search, flight, book tickets, cancel bookings. These are through web automations. So when you do UI testing, you'll be testing these things. But in API testings, this comes checks ability, flight ability, validate booking APIs, test hotels. These comes inside API testing. So, and again, in robot frameworks, basically it helps us to automate both together or separately. So basically, robot frameworks is a platform where we do these testings, and these are different testings that we perform in a project. So I guess you got an idea that in a particular domain, what type of testings we are doing and what are the different testings and how it's differentiated between UI testing and API testings. all plays its role. So a tester tests at different sections. Someone tests UI test, web sections. Someone tests API testing. So these many jobs, you can say, or these many opportunities are there because a single person is not doing all the testing. There are different role for different team members. So some team member is doing web testing, someone is doing API testing, someone is doing database testing. So basically you have these different options, and these are the real-time scenarios. Basically these are the different domains you may be working on, and these testings you'll be performing. I hope it's quite clear. Now you have got an idea. Now, in till now you have got to know about the robot frameworks. Again, you got to know the advantage of robot frameworks. Then you got a comparison between the old frameworks which you have been using and the robot frameworks. What's good in this robot frameworks? And now you have got an idea of real-time scenarios where in the real-time projects, what testings you'll be doing using robot frameworks, and as well as what different type of testing you'll be doing, and where the API testing role is. So you have got an overview of all. Now we'll focus on testing, API testing. Now we'll focus on the installation parts and all. So that's all in this section. In the next section, we'll talk about the installation sections, and we'll start using API, and we'll start doing code. So that will be the interesting section. So stay tuned and keep watching. Thank you.